Welcome to Moving Forward for Life with Rosita. Discover your way home. You know, one thing that is constant in life is there will always be change. And changes could be buying or selling a home, the loss of a loved one, marriage, divorce, it goes on. But when you find yourself on a new path, whether planned or unexpected, what you know is home is shaken or shattered. So this is clear. How you process a change will impact the trajectory of your life. Moving Forward for Life with Rosita starts now. Hey, hi, and welcome to Moving Forward for Life with Rosita. Discover your way home. I am Rosita, your host and the founder of Moving Forward for Life. I have spent many years detached from my own identity, my home, the core of who God made me to be. I finally woke up and began my healing journey. And now I partner with women to help them determine what they need to come home, and home being the core of who they were made to be. The focus of my shows are all topics related to self-discovery, all with the goal to help you find your purpose, get unstuck, and move forward in a life that you desire in your authentic self. I'm so excited because today I have Des Caminos. Hi, Des.
Hello. Hi, Rosita. I'm so excited to be here with you and to share some resources to get these women unstuck. I'm so happy.
Yes. Now, Des is an embodiment life coach and an intuitive somatic healer, as well as the owner of the Interconnected Self. She'll give you more information about that later. We have so much to talk about because this is such a huge topic for me. I lived it for decades, and I'm so glad to see the younger generation of women so aware of what's going on. So if you're not sure what the topic is, it is break free. 3 similarities between toxic relationships and perfectionism. Let's see if we can relate to that, ladies. Now, no matter what stage you're in, where you're at in your relationship, or whether you know you're a perfectionist or somewhat a perfectionist, what Des is going to share is going to provide insight and tips to help you break free, whether you choose to do that today or in a couple weeks. It's all up to you, but you choose the trajectory of how your life is going to go. So Des, I noticed within the past 5 years, at least for me, I've noticed that there's a huge shift in awareness regarding perfectionism and toxic relationships, inner child healing, all that stuff. Because back in the day, like my mom, she, that generation group, toxic relationships were the norm. You just didn't talk about them, right? And I'm so glad to see how women today are aware. They're working on their self-care, their well-being, they're rediscovering their identity and participating in self, not in a selfish way, but in a much needed way for quality of life. So Des, let's get going on this. I'm so excited.
Yes. Also, thank you so much for speaking to this kind of generational understanding and awareness of toxicity and perfectionism. I told my mom, I'm talking about toxic relationships and I'm telling her about it. And she's like, that's just how it is. And so I think that that's sometimes we get so used to this life of toxic relationships that it doesn't look toxic to us because we grew up with it. So it feels so normal. And the same with perfectionism. Perfectionism can really come off as this feeling of, I'm so excited, I'm the overachiever, the all or nothing girl. And for me, I didn't really know I was a perfectionist until I was looking at all the signs. So thank you so much, first and foremost, to speaking to those two things, because I think it's something that everyone can relate to. Yeah. People know someone who've been in a toxic relationship who were kind of making it small, saying it's not that bad. So thank you, Rosita, for speaking to all the women out there who are like, ooh, I'm there.
I want to touch upon something that you said was, it was normal for a lot of us, especially in the baby boomer generation, right? This is what we know. But here's the thing, when you grow up with that and you think it's normal, that's the place you pick a mate from. All on you, Des.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And before I jump into these three similarities, one thing that I want to tell everybody who's listening is some of these things might come off and just be like, oh man, awareness, oh, feelings of judgment or whatever. And so if that comes up for you, just to take a breath and remember that there is no judgment in healing. Because when we get into that state of judgment, our parasympathetic response starts to go and we go into a state of survival. So all of these tools and resources that I'm going to share with you are here, like Rosita was saying, for you. It's your choice. You are here to be empowered. So that being said, the first similarity between being in a toxic relationship and being a perfectionist is having unrealistic expectations. Having unrealistic expectations are in both of those relationships. So whether you're in a toxic relationship with a partner, a friend, a parent, with yourself, or if you're in that perfectionist mindset, both of you guys are going to have unrealistic expectations. The perfectionist is going to be the one that's always striving for perfect. And the thing is, perfect is subjective. Rosita's definition of perfect is different than mine, which is different than you who are listening. And because there is this unrealistic expectation of perfectionism, we're always looking for that missing piece. We're not happy, that's feeling unfulfilled, constantly striving for more. And in that place of having unrealistic expectations, we're looking at all the things that we're putting out into the world with how they can be improved. Oh, it's not perfect. How can I make it better? So that criticism can kind of come in there as well, constantly criticizing yourself because you're not meeting your unrealistic expectations.
Now, Des, let me ask you a question. So the perfectionism, the thought of could that also be like growing up watching these romantic movies and the Princess Disney, is that could be kind of part of the perfectionism, wanting this type of relationship?
Definitely. When I'm talking about perfectionism, I'm not just talking about the person who's striving for a perfect relationship, who grew up with these false sense of love, of, companionship, of communication, whatever it is. But also those parts of us that are looking to be perfect at work. I want to be perfect at work. I've got to put the perfect content out there. I have to have the perfect relationship with my daughter. I have to have the perfect relationship, whatever. And so it's really in all of those states of being in a perfectionist mindset where it's just looking at all the things that you're doing from that sense of how can it be improved. So you have this unrealistic expectation of what you're meant to be. I've got to be the perfect wife. I've got to be the perfect mother. I've got to be the perfect businesswoman. Next thing you know, we're just slowly getting crumpled by all of the stacking expectations. And how that same unrealistic expectation can show up in toxic relationships is if you've ever been in a relationship with someone who holds you to unrealistic expectations, then you can be relating to this as well. Perfectionists hold themselves to unrealistic expectations, and toxic partners, toxic family members tend to hold those people that they're being toxic towards in that same light of unrealistic expectations. You need to be dressing like this. You need to be doing this. Why is dinner not ready at 6 o'clock? You're meant to be, a woman in the street and a freak in the bed. It's all of these ideas of unrealistic expectations that show up in both of the mindsets. Toxic partners have unrealistic expectations. Perfectionists have unrealistic expectations of themselves.
That's good. That's good. So number one is unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm. And the second one is lack of boundaries. Yep, boundaries, the B word. And the thing is, you know, coming back to perfectionists have a really difficult time maintaining boundaries within themselves. The perfectionist is the one who's like, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on this project, cut to 5 hours later because they want it to be perfect. They're the ones who are saying, I can't help but take work home with me because I can't maintain that boundary of work versus profession or, personal life.
Right.
Because you can't maintain those lack of boundaries. It's always constantly being inundated with all of these areas of your life that you're thinking about. It makes it really difficult to be present in the moment. And the same with a toxic partner. Toxic partners do not respect boundaries. Yeah, I see you, Rosita, laughing. You know, and they don't. Toxic
Yep.
partners are the ones when they're like, you're like, hey, I'm gonna be with my friends, you know, and they're the ones who are blowing your phone up, you know, sending you message after message. You're the one who says, I just need 10 minutes of space to think about my thoughts and feelings, and they don't want to give it to you. They're the ones who are showing up unannounced. Because again, toxic partners, toxic people don't respect boundaries. They have a lack of boundaries. And the same, if you are struggling with a perfectionist mindset, you have a difficult time maintaining those boundaries with yourself as well.
Mm. So you're constantly like, it's kind of a lot of self-sabotaging going on because you have these huge expectations of yourself, and then you beat yourself up all the time because you can't meet them because you get so stuck in the details of being perfect.
Exactly.
Mm.
And I'm so glad that you brought that up, that self sabotage, because it leads perfectly into the third similarity, which is self doubt.
Oh,
When we experience self doubt, we are way more likely to self sabotage because there's a part of us that maybe has this disconnect, whether it's feeling unworthy, incapable. So, perfectionists struggle with self doubt. Although, if you would have asked me in my perfectionist days if I struggle with self doubt, I would have been like, no, not this girl. I'm perfect, you know, or I'm an overachiever, whatever label I would have been under at the time.
right. Yeah.
But you struggle with self doubt. And it's in that place of struggling with self doubt that you feel the need to give that coping mechanism that is wanting to give off a perfect perception.
Mm.
And
That's good.
toxic partners, toxic people tend to gravitate towards people who struggle with self doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. And perfectionists, being a recovering one, still recovering, um, perfectionists want to always give and give so much to make that your mate feel so important. But then I know for me, I experience giving to the cost of nothing, having nothing left for me.
Exactly. And I think a part of that is because perfectionists are giving because they're always trying to prove their value or their worth. You know,
Mm,
I want to make sure that everybody around me feels like they can come to me for anything. You know, when I was a perfectionist, I didn't call myself a perfectionist. I called myself the all or nothing girl. I wanted people to be able to be like, hey, can you help me with this project? Hey, can you help me with this party? And I'd be able to be in 20 places at once. Can
yeah.
anybody relate to that? Yeah. And because
Too
we're,
fast.
that let me put my feet up. But that's the thing, you know, because perfectionists struggle with self-worth and struggle in that place of self-doubt, they do have the tendency to overgive because again, they're just in that place of trying to prove their value and worth to
Well,
other
it's
people.
it's like an addiction in a sense, right?
Mm.
Because in order to feel the self-worth that we feel as perfectionists, we've got to help. And the more we help, the more that feeds our emptiness. But it's not real. And you can't really operate from that place. As I used to volunteer in the church all the time, nothing wrong with volunteering in the church, nothing wrong with using your gifts and talents to bless anybody, whether it's church or anybody else, nothing wrong with that. But I could not say no. That was super hard. Now I can say no with love, but that's a journey. And I think, Des, that what happens is that we as women grew up with this kind of, right? We
Yeah,
have,
and that's very much it. You know, there's different types of perfectionists. So there are perfectionists who also struggle with people pleasing, who struggle with saying no. And then on the flip side, there are the perfectionists who are real quick to say no because they're like, nope, that's not part of the path that I'm on, which is something completely different. but it's how we grew up. It's these templates that we learned. And, coming back to womanhood, we take in these social construct, these ideas of being a woman means to be a nurturer, to be there for other people. And so as a result, we have a difficult time saying no, especially if what we're saying no to is helping other people.
Right.
And one thing that I always invite people to think about is when you're moving or you're doing something, ask yourself, am I doing this from a place of love or am I doing this from a place of fear? So, coming back to that volunteering example, am I volunteering at the church because I love volunteering? And maybe that's a part of it, but is there real deeper meaning because I'm afraid that if I say no, then the people at church are going to look at me different? If I say no, then my mom is going to be like, how could you say no to, Father Dewey? Like, how could you do that?
Right.
And so
Right.
just
And that is the
asking.
balance. That's where the boundaries come in. Now I
Exactly.
give from a place of complete, yes, I want to help because I want to help because I know I want to serve in this capacity. So yeah, but that took me a long time. And I just want to make a huge point that just because we grew up in this kind of upbringing, that takes nothing away from our moms or our parents or anything like that. They gave from a place of what they knew. So we're not here blaming our parents or the upbringing. A lot of that is, yes, it's caught because we watched it. It may have been taught, but that's not the end all of our story. And I think that we need to release that a lot of anger or frustration or blame on our parents for how we grew up. I mean, now we are adults. It is up to us to make that shift. They did the best that they could, and it's up to us to make that shift. So I just want to put that out there.
Yes, and I'm so glad you did because, we are talking about these templates and it's so easy for us to feel, guilty like when, oh, I don't, it's not my parents' fault. And then we kind of get into the spiral of feeling guilt or shame. Or the other side, we get angry and resentful because our parents didn't give us the template that we deserved.
Right.
But when we're in that place of guilt, shame, resentment, we're stuck. It's
Mhm.
really difficult to move forward because we're there and we're in it. So I love that you're talking about that choice, that free will. Now that you know that you have this template, what are you going to choose to do?
That's the key. That's the key because nobody can make a shift in you but you.
Yes. And, I invite everybody just to do this exercise, and so just cross your arms, just like when you cross your arms, it's like, okay, that feels good. Now do it the other way, putting the opposite arm on top. Feels a little weird, right? A little uncomfortable. And I always invite people to think about this experience because who taught you how to cross your arms? Your parents? Or did you just kind of learn this from the people around you?
Yeah. It's probably more caught than
Exactly. And so it's really easy for us to be like, oh, I'm blaming my parents for this, but maybe it was your parents, maybe it was a combination of your parents and Disney movies and other stuff. And in that process of choosing to do something different, like crossing your arms the opposite way, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel awkward. But the reason that it feels awkward is because it's new.
right. Just something that came to mind when you were, trying to switch the arm crossing, which is being closed off. I just want to challenge people to switch it from the arm crossing to the hugging. That's
Mhm.
uncomfortable too. But a lot of times when we're alone in our own perfectionism, in our own pity party, I call it, right? And those are okay to have. Just don't stay there, girl. Don't stay there. Have a moment and move on. But instead of doing this, I'm so mad because ABC, but I'm so loved. I love me and
Mhm.
I love the people and support that I have.
And the one thing that I'll say too is like those hugs can be so amazing and so soothing. I know you kind of mentioned very briefly in the beginning inner child, but I also want to let people know that if you're hugging yourself and you don't like it, that's okay because maybe that's not for you.
Yeah.
A lot of times people who have had painful experiences or trauma, sometimes those self hugs can put people more in a state of panic because it triggers them. And so, whatever it is that you need to soothe, like Rosita is saying, to remind yourself that, okay, I'm in the pity party, like I've been down here, but now I'm going to get up and I'm going to choose to take action and do something different. Find what soothes you. Maybe it's a self hug, maybe it's a bath, maybe it's punching a pillow. No judgment, remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to go get therapy or counseling, or just start the journey. If it's about being in group coaching or group, just different groups for helping you through boundaries or whatever it is, the point is you're self-aware now. So take the steps and choose you to get to your healing path. And everybody has a different path. Wouldn't you agree, Des?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, like you're saying, awareness is beautiful and it's amazing and it can be so transformational, but only if it comes with action. Only if it comes with action. And sometimes taking action can be really, really scary. And so that's why having someone like a counselor or a coach can be really helpful. And the reason is because a lot of times our fears that we have, they come in relation to other people. Our parents saying something, our teacher saying something, that toxic relationship you got out of. So sometimes being able to just express that, get that out of your body and share it with someone, being witnessed in that release, sometimes that action can be not only powerful, but honestly life-changing.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Because
You know.
there's something to be said when you speak out. Our words are so powerful. So that's how I actually started. I mean, I went to therapy, but being in a group setting with people who are going through the same thing and actually speaking it out, using my words to say, this is my trauma or my experience, it shifted. It started to shift in me like, wait a minute, I just let that out. The power. It's like you don't have that particular trauma has no more power over me, and I can take the next step forward.
Yes, yes, there's so many things I want to say to that, but just being able to give voice to your fears
Mm.
means that those fears aren't shouting in your head anymore. You're
Boy,
not those fears aren't shouting in your head and you're just there stuck listening to them shout. When you can give them voice, you're taking them out of your head. And yes, you're putting them into the world, but when you get them out of your head, it gets a lot quieter up there.
mm. Yeah, and then you have real estate then for creativity, for other thoughts to come in that are much more positive. But that's so much to get into. That's a whole nother show. So we're getting close to our end, and I really want Des to talk about the her embodiment life coach. But let's recap. So Des, recapping.
Yeah. So
Number one.
So number one, similarities between perfectionism and toxic relationship. The first similarity is having unrealistic expectations. So having unrealistic expectations of yourself or a toxic partner having unrealistic expectations of you. The second similarity between the two is a lack of boundaries. So perfectionists struggle with boundaries for themselves, and a toxic partner really does not respect the boundaries of their partner. And the third similarity is just self-doubt. Perfectionists struggling with self-doubt internally, and a toxic partner is going to gravitate towards someone who does experience self-doubt because it makes it easier for them to take advantage and weaponize that self-doubt against that person.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes. Wow, that was a great 3 tips in a short amount of time. And I want to let's then talk about your what is an embodiment life coach? Let's start with that.
Yeah, so an embodiment life coach, the way that I work is I work a lot with the body. And so really getting you to that deeper understanding of what is it that's happening in your body so that way when you experience these emotional triggers, you're not reacting from a place of pain or fear, you're responding from that place of authenticity. And so
Mm.
an embodiment life coach is really going to help you drop out of the analytical mind and back into the wisdom and safety of your body.
Oh, I love that. And then this intuitive somatic healer. What is that?
Oh yeah, bringing that back up. So a lot of, because a lot of what I do is with the body. So I do a lot of somatic therapy. So again, exploring where the body holds our memories and traumas. You know, the
Oh,
body is like a beautiful detailed map of the subconscious mind. So even though you can't remember that time that teacher said you weren't, going to make it in the world, your body does, and it's stored there.
mm.
So I ended up getting into somatics and somatic therapy and somatic healing. So that way, not only can we help move these traumas in the body, but we can actually start to change and shift that energy to release pain. So a lot of my clients come to me with physical problems like lower back pain, migraines, tight shoulders. And one thing that we do in the place of embodiment is I bring in this deeper somatic healing experience to process the body, so to alleviate a lot of that physical pain.
I love that. Now, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so for anybody who wants to find me, my website is theinterconnectedself.com, and that is a company that I own. And on social media, you can find me directly at Des Caminos. And so I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I even have a private women's community called Women of Wisdom.
Oh, I love that.
Hmm.
So we are at the end of our time. Des, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. I really enjoyed having you here. And I'd like to invite you back to do maybe some more in-depth somatic healer type
Mm,
stuff.
yeah, I would love that. I'm always down to invite people into experiences of the body because we live in a loud world.
Yeah, I like that. It is loud. Sometimes it's just loud within ourselves.
Oh, you're telling me this thing does not stop up here.
Thank you guys so much. Go to my website, movingforwardforlife.com, for resources, free products, lots of stuff going on there. I can't even begin to mention everything, but come join us in either one of our websites. We are here. Our hearts are here to help you and to bring awareness and help you get on a path of healing. Now, my last quote is, choosing the trajectory of your life is within your reach. You have the choice. Thank you so much. Bye, Des.
Bye.
To Moving Forward for Life with Rosita, discover your way home. Through my own personal healing journey, I've come out stronger and braver. I know firsthand how hard, how lonely, and heartbreaking it is to continually live in pain. As we work together, you will discover the good, the bad, and the not so pretty parts of yourself so you can uncover the fabulous in you. Discover what you need to come home, whether that's a physical home or the home in you. Join me every second and fourth Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific.